There is a number, a specific dollar figure, that the moment you cross it quietly moves you from doing okay to rich in this country. Everyone has a guess. Almost everyone is wrong in both directions. Some of you think it's far higher than it actually is, and some of you have already passed it and have no idea. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly where you sit. You'll also understand something more uncomfortable. The reason rich feels impossible to reach isn't your spending. It's that the finish line has been moving away from you for 20 years and almost nobody is telling you why. Let's fix that. First, we have to kill the most common mistake, because if you get this wrong, nothing else makes sense. People measure rich by salary. That's the wrong instrument. A surgeon on 400 grand a year who rents, leases the car, and has no assets is not rich. He's a high earner with an expensive life. The day he stops working, the money stops. A retired couple with a paid-off home and a healthy super balance might have almost no income at all, and they're set for life. Rich isn't what lands in your account each month. Rich is what you own after you subtract what you owe. That's net worth. So, for the rest of this video, when we ask how much makes you rich, we're talking about net worth, not salary. We'll come back to income because it does matter, but it's the engine, not the destination. Here's the ladder. These are household net worth figures, so a couple's wealth is counted together. Keep that in mind as you place yourself. The typical Australian household sits in the few hundred thousand range, and the overwhelming majority of that is the home and superannuation, not shares, not a business, a house and a retirement account. To crack the top 10% of households, you're looking at a net worth of roughly $2.9 million. Top 5%, around $3.9 million, and to stand in the top 1% of Australian households, the estimates put it near $7.2 million. Look at that jump. From the top 10% to the top 1%, the number more than doubles. That gap is the whole story of wealth in this country, and we'll get to why it's so wide. Now, the engine. What salary actually feeds this? To sit in the top 10% of individual earners, you need a pre-tax income somewhere around the $200,000 mark. The top 1% of earners start somewhere north of $500,000. But here's the trap, and it's the trap that catches doctors, lawyers, and FIFO workers every single year. A big income does not make you rich. It gives you the raw material to become rich if you convert it into assets. Spend it all, and you're just a high earner on a treadmill. Income knocks on the door, assets are what gets you inside. Now, we're about to flip the whole thing on its head and expand out to the global stage. You've been comparing yourself to other Australians, so let's compare you to the planet. Worldwide, fewer than 2% of adults hold more than 1 million US dollars. That tiny sliver owns nearly half of all the wealth on Earth. Meanwhile, more than 8 in 10 adults on this planet have less than 100,000 US dollars to their name. Now, here's what that means for you. The average Australian adult holds around $500,000 US dollars in wealth, which ranks among the highest of any country on Earth, being ahead of the US median and ahead of most of Europe. A paid-off home in an Australian suburb, a number that feels completely ordinary to you, places you on the global scale in roughly the top 1% of humans alive. Read that again. The thing you've been chasing, the rich, globally, that is you, or very nearly. So, if we're some of the wealthiest people on this planet, why does rich feel further away every year? Why does it feel like you're running and the finish line keeps backing up? Well, that's because it is, and here's the data that proves it isn't in your head. Over the last 2 decades, the wealth of older Australian households has climbed by more than 50%, driven almost entirely by the property boom and growing super. The wealth of households under 35, it barely moved, flat, and the poorest young Australians today actually have less than the poorest young Australians did 20 years ago, even though they're saving more and not less. Here's the one that should make you angry. Among the least wealthy young adults, the home ownership rate has collapsed from around 60% in the early 80s to about 20% today. And the concentration keeps tightening. The wealthiest 20% of households now own around 62% of everything. This is the real answer to why rich feels impossible. The bottom rungs of the ladder got sawn off. For a huge slice of the boom, wealth wasn't earned through work and saving. It was inflated into assets of people who already owned them. If you got in early, the tide lifted you. If you didn't, you've been swimming against it. That's not a personal failing, it's a structural shift, and pretending otherwise is how people end up blaming themselves for arithmetic that was set against them. So let's answer the question properly. Not what number makes you look rich, but what number actually makes you free. Because a household can be worth 7 million on paper, all of it trapped in a house they live in and can't spend, with barely any cash flow, rich on a spreadsheet, stretched in real life. The number that actually matters is the one that lets you stop trading your time for money. As a rough guide, financial independence arrives when your invested assets, the ones that pay you, not the home you live in, can cover your yearly spending at a safe withdrawal of around 4%. Spend $60,000 a year, your freedom number is around 1.5 million in income producing assets. Spend 80, 2 million. That's the figure worth chasing, not a leaderboard position, a point where work becomes optional. And the good news, the thing the gloom misses, you don't need to win the property lottery to get there. The single most powerful lever is boring and fully in your control. Convert income into assets that pay you automatically, relentlessly, starting now. The people who do that quietly outfinish the high earners who don't every single time. So, how much money makes you rich in Australia? On paper, top 1% is around 7 million a household. Globally, you may already be there and not know it. The honest answer isn't that rich was always the wrong target. Free is the target, and free has a number that you can actually calculate overnight. Drop your freedom number in the comments, not your salary, the asset times 25 figure. If this reframed how you think about money, subscribe, because the whole channel is built on exactly this, cutting through the noise and giving you the number that's actually true.